Hi, this is Will, and this is a PhotoTouch tutorial on importing images into Apple's professional photo application, Aperture. Today I'm going to take you through the basics of importing your photos, all the way through to the more advanced features of managing a large photo library. First off though, let's have a look at a basic import from a memory card. Now as we can see, this is a brand new version of Aperture, completely empty of any projects or files. If I click in my memory card into my memory card reader, within a second or two, Aperture should launch up the import menu. Here we go. Now, as we can see instantly, it has loaded up thumbnails of the images which are on my card. And in the left-hand corner here, we can see that we've got this arrow, which is saying where the images are coming from, my memory card, and where the images are going to, which at the moment is the library. We have no projects. Now, we need to put images into projects in Aperture. That's where they live. And if we look at the toolbar at the top, I only have one option available to me, which is this new drop-down menu. And within the menu, there's only one option available, New Project. I can then name this as I wish. And we can see that the head of the arrow is now pointing to that project. I can add another project if I want to, if I was importing into several locations. But we can see that as I click on each one, the arrow updates. A particular import can only go to one project to begin with. Now, we can see that we have the thumbnails, and at the bottom this nice little total telling me how many images are on my memory card. And on the right hand side, we have our options. Image information just lets me know a little bit more about each thumbnail as I click on it, with things like the name, the date, the time, the file size. Storing the files, and this drop down menu here is what we're going to concentrate in this tutorial, however. Now, the first option in the Aperture library is the default setting. That means that Aperture will copy the images from the memory card and put them onto the internal hard drive on the computer where the Aperture library is located. Anything which is grayed out we can see is not applicable for this menu item, and we'll concentrate on what those options come up in a future video. And we have the option of do not import duplicates. Now this is a handy thing from Aperture. If we forgot to clear a card before we shot and then imported the card again, this will hide anything that it recognizes so we don't land up with any duplicates in our library. Clicking it here has made no changes to the number of images we're looking at because none of them have been imported just yet. Version name is the name that Aperture calls the files. Now, at the moment, master file name will keep whatever the files are called from the memory card. You can take the opportunity, if you wish though, to choose from any of these options here to name the files as best suits you. For example, if we choose custom name with counter and I give it the name guitarist, if I select an image we can see that this was what the file was called and this is what the file will be called as it's imported. If I select all the images we'll see that they'll be called guitarist 1, guitarist 2, guitarist 3 and so on. Applying that to the master file names is asking you whether you want to rename the file completely, guitarist 1. If I leave this unticked, the master file buried deep within the Aperture library will remain named this original file name, but the version which is imported into Aperture will have this name. I personally like to have this option switched on, just because if you've got the file and the master file name the same, there's less chance of you losing them if you ever come across it. Any orphan files you'll be able to quickly locate into the Aperture library, the corresponding file. Time adjustment, again a handy little tool. If you ever travel and forget to change your menu and your date and your time on your camera, this just allows Aperture to do it for you and to batch change all the images as they're imported. For example, if we choose adjust time zone and we say that the camera was in London but we actually shot in New York, again a red line just shows the update for us that even though the camera thought it was 9 o'clock at night, we were actually shooting at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. It has minus the 5 hours for us. Very handy if you can't remember the time difference, what time you actually shot at. Aperture has got that built in for all the different time zones across the world. Add metadata allows you to choose how much information you want to add to your file depending on what you need as a photographer or what your editor or your picture library requires. Now if we click on all IPTC we can see there is a huge list for us to choose from, but some of the little previews down the bottom in this menu allow us to choose something a bit more manageable. For example, from general we've just got a few options that we can add. We can add some keywords, we can add the credit of the photographer, we can add our copyright details and the object name, as much or as little information as we need. Whatever we type here will be applied to all the images as we import. Now, with one image selected, my import button says import one image. If I hold down the Option key and select a few images, it will then say import 4 images. And if we click between the photos so nothing in particular is highlighted, we get the option to import all. And we can see that the image is starting to be imported one by one. We've got a little pie chart to show us the progress, and if we need a bit more information we can go to Window, Show Activity, and we get a countdown on how much time is remaining. Once Aperture has completed the import, we're then presented with a few options. Done will just complete the process and carry on. Eject card will eject the card, and we can also choose to erase the images before we eject the card. I tend to steer clear of this option. I think the camera does a better job of erasing images and formatting cards, so eject card allows us to pull out the card from the memory card reader. We can close this window here. We now have all the images imported into the project, and we're ready to get on with our adjustments, our editing, and so on.